Hi, I'm Alex Kidman from Fat Duck Tech, continuing my week-long review of the iPhone 6 Plus. This is Apple's brand new, very large smartphone. Today was Sunday, which is typically a day of rest, but in my typical fashion, I ended up actually being quite productive, both without the iPhone 6 Plus and with it. Now, productivity is a very interesting thing because there's all sorts of ways that you can measure it. You can go down the benchmark route, and for those of you who like big shiny numbers, look, here's some benchmark numbers just to make you happy. This is just using Geekbench 3 across an iPhone 6 Plus, an iPhone 6 and an iPhone 5S. And as you can see, yeah, look, the newer phones are a little bit sharper, a little bit faster, as you'd expect. It's interesting to note that the 6 slightly outscores the 6 Plus. I think that's to do with the way that Geekbench is recognising the memory in there, but they're still solid little performers. I'm sure some may want to jump up and down and go, but Geekbench is multi-platform. Why are you not showing the numbers compared to a Note or a Windows phone or something else? Well, actually, that's quite deliberate. I think that it's far too easy to get caught up just on straight benchmark numbers and say, well, my number's bigger than yours, therefore my device is better. And it doesn't actually always play through on how the device handles itself when you're actually using it, how well the resources go. This is something I think Apple often gets quite right. It can throw a relatively low spec part into a system, but because it's only got a code for a handful of systems, typically we're talking maybe 4 or 5 iPhones, a bunch of iPads and the iPod Touch. That's all it's got a code for. Android, on the other hand, has to be all things to all sorts of configurations. So often you can end up with quite high spec devices that don't run as well as you might expect. That doesn't mean that they're not worth considering, but it's not always a comparison where the numbers actually tell you what you need to know. And what you need to know is whether or not this is a productive device. And again, it can and it can't be. There's some difficulty here as well, of course, because this is a device running iOS 8, and an awful lot of what it does in a productive sense relates to what iOS 8 can do. And you can get iOS 8 on an iPhone 5S or 5C or an iPad or a bunch of other devices as well. So in my fashion, I'm a writer, so what I've been playing with on the 6 Plus has been Pages, and Pages is okay. I'm still not in love with it as a mobile word processor, but if I absolutely had to, yes, I could use it on this. As I noted yesterday, I've largely been using Swipe as my keyboard rather than the inbuilt keyboard, but when I'm being productive with it, I tend to go into 2 fingers typing mode anyway, so yeah, maybe that's not such a big thing. I'm still not in love with the whole double tap to bring the screen down thing. I get what they've tried to do, and I think it's probably a better effort than most have tried. The competing options, I suppose, would be things like the Galaxy Note's S Pen, but again, that's a two-handed operation kind of thing. And it's a different style of productivity. There's a market for that as well, I'm sure. I will look at doing a more full comparison between this and, in fact, the Note, because that's really the very obvious competitor space, the very large phone. And by the way, I really don't like that other word for them. It annoys me at some base level, and maybe that's me. But I will do that in one of the coming days. That's one of the comparisons I have in mind. As a baseline productivity tool, do you need the 6 Plus over, say, the 6 if you're already in the iOS space? I'm becoming convinced that you probably don't. The performance gap is essentially negligible between the two. The size has some utility if you were going to pair it, say, to an external keyboard, but once you start doing that, you start pushing up almost into the kind of iPad mini space. And of course, the other thing to bear in mind with the 6 Plus is that whilst it's a very large phone, it doesn't actually run iPad-specific apps. You can't say, well, hey, I've got the screen real estate, please let me do this. Apple doesn't want you doing it that way for its own reasons. So if I was going from a straight productivity viewpoint, I would probably veer towards the 6 more than the 6 Plus. Finally, thanks for the feedback I've been getting. If you do have any questions, queries, anything you think that I'm raising well or raising poorly, I can take the criticism, then feel free to leave a comment below. And if you'd like to subscribe, of course, there's this big friendly button up here that will let you do that.